The legendary killer known as Jason was captured by the United States government and placed in a special research facility. Since he could not die, the scientists planned to freeze him through cryogenic preservation. One of the guards, disturbed by Jason's terrifying stare, placed a cover over his head. At that moment, Dr. Rowan was arguing with her superior, who had decided that instead of freezing Jason, they would send him to a laboratory to study his ability to regenerate cells, hoping to make a fortune from it. Rowan believed this was a terrible idea, as it would allow Jason to continue his killing spree, but her superior completely ignored her warnings. Shortly after, the head scientist and a group of soldiers entered the room where Jason was being held. However, when they removed the cover, they discovered that the body bound by chains was not Jason, but the guard's corpse. At that very moment, Jason emerged from hiding and began slaughtering everyone in the room mercilessly. The soldiers opened fire on him, but the bullets had no effect. Jason used various tools to kill, even the chains themselves. And when the head scientist tried to stop him, Jason hurled a weapon at him and killed him as well.
Rowan was waiting outside when she screamed as a soldier was hurled through the door. At that very moment, Jason appeared behind her. Rowan snatched the soldier's rifle and ran into the laboratory, hiding as she waited for him to come in. As soon as he entered, she shoved the furniture against him and opened fire relentlessly, forcing him into the cryogenic capsule. She quickly rushed to seal it and activated the machine. However, as Jason began to freeze, he managed to drive his machete into the capsule's door and struck it, causing a major malfunction. Immediately, the entire facility activated the containment protocol, releasing the cryogenic fluid throughout the area. In the end, Rowan herself was frozen as well.
400 years later, Earth had become a wasteland after the apocalypse, so polluted that no one could survive on it. Humanity had migrated to a new planet called Earth 2. One day, Dr. Lowe and his team of university students visited Earth on an exploratory mission. They entered the facility and opened the capsule, discovering Jason frozen inside. They also found Rowan lying on the floor, astonishingly well preserved. The team immediately decided to take both bodies to their ship. While trying to move Jason's body, he fell, and his machete severed the arm of one of them, a man named Azrael. Fortunately, the android KM-14 administered an injection to ease his pain temporarily. The group then transported the bodies during a sandstorm and returned to their ship, which took off right away and rejoined the main vessel. Azrael was placed inside a medical device where nanotechnology restored his arm within minutes. Meanwhile, Rowan and Jason were transferred to separate laboratories for examination before awakening them. As the team studied the scans, they were shocked at how Jason could function with such a tiny brain. At the same time, nanotechnology repaired Rowan's wound in one laboratory, while Adrian took Jason to another to extract a sample from his brain. After Rowan had fully recovered, she woke up in shock and struck Dr. Lowe, who then explained the situation to her. She calmed down but was stunned when she realized that she was now in the future. Later, Lowe returned to his office to contact the Solaris research station, sending them files on Rowan and Jason in hopes of making money from the discovery. Reviving someone who had been frozen for 400 years was no longer considered impressive, so Rowan was of little interest to them. Jason, however, remained a notorious killer whose reputation endured even in the future, and Lowe agreed to sell him for public display. Meanwhile, Adrian removed Jason's mask and saw how horribly disfigured his face was. She quickly replaced the mask and focused on studying the sample she had taken. Behind her, Jason began to stir as he slowly broke free from his frozen state. In another room, Sunaran was attempting to modify the android KM-14 to make her appearance more realistic, but the task proved to be quite difficult. At that moment, the noise aboard the ship awakened Jason. When Adrian turned, she found the table empty. Jason was gone. Suddenly, he appeared behind her, grabbed her face, and hurled her through a glass wall. Adrian screamed to alert Anne, but he did not hear her. Jason then dragged her by the hair, plunged her head into liquid nitrogen, freezing it before smashing it against the table, killing her instantly. He then took a machete from the operating table and went searching for his next victim. Meanwhile, Lowe brought food to Rowan, pretending not to know who Jason was. Believing him, she told him everything about Jason's inability to die. Afterwards, Lowe introduced Rowan to some of his students, and she was impressed by their experiments, particularly fascinated by the android KM-14. At that moment, Wayland appeared, carrying Jason's old machete. Rowan was terrified and realized that Jason had been brought aboard the ship. Lowe swore that Jason was dead, but Rowan doubted him and demanded proof.
They went to Laboratory 2, where they discovered Adrian's corpse. Immediately, the head of security, Brody, declared a quarantine over the loudspeakers and ordered everyone to hide together in a single lab. In one of the rooms, a male and female student were preparing to leave when Jason suddenly appeared at the door and instantly killed the boy. His blood splattered onto the face of the girl, Kinsa, who screamed at the top of her lungs. Jason then dragged the corpse away, and Kinsa ran to find the others and tell them what had happened. Brody was furious and ordered his soldiers to destroy Jason on sight. Lowe, however, disapproved and insisted Jason should only be sedated, offering Brody a hefty bribe. Brody appeared to agree, but secretly instructed his team to kill Jason the moment they saw him. Soldier Dallas cautiously entered a dark room where a massive monster suddenly attacked him. He quickly fired, bringing it down, but when another creature appeared behind him, he hesitated. Fortunately, Azrael killed it with a single shot. In reality, they had been playing a video simulation and had not heard Brody's announcement. Just as they prepared to face another monster, Jason appeared and defeated it. Jason then turned on the two young men with his machete, but he was confused to see them still talking even after their heads were severed. Suddenly, Dallas said, "Game over." The simulation vanished, revealing that the real killer was Jason himself. Jason seized Azrael, prompting Walls to fire in an attempt to force him to let go, but the bullets had no effect. Azrael tried to leap onto Jason from behind, but Jason caught him effortlessly, snapped his spine, and threw him to the ground. He then grabbed Dallas and smashed his face into the wall. Moments later, two soldiers discovered the corpses in the game room and rushed to warn the others, who were already deeply anxious. At the same time, Engineer Crutch was working at his desk with his headphones on, completely unaware of what was happening. Suddenly, he saw Jason approaching through the reflection in the mirror. Before he could react, Brody and his soldiers appeared, ordered him to duck, and unleashed dozens of bullets at Jason, destroying half the room in the process. When the gunfire ceased, they realized Jason had vanished. After Crutch went to Laboratory 1, the soldiers split up to search for him, convinced that he must have been seriously injured. But this only gave Jason the chance to continue killing silently. First, he grabbed one soldier from behind and snapped his neck in a dark corner. Then he found another soldier alone and attacked him with a machete. A fight broke out, and the soldier managed to land a few punches, but Jason struck him down and hurled him off a railing, sending him crashing into machinery that killed him instantly. The other soldiers discovered the body and reported back to Brody, who ordered them to press on with the mission. Later, Jason ambushed another female soldier and slit her throat. She did not die immediately, stumbling toward a comrade for help before collapsing dead. Jason then reappeared, and a soldier opened fire on him at once. The bullets forced Jason backward until he was impaled on a hook. The soldier activated a control that hoisted Jason into the air and proudly announced over the comms that he had won. But Jason simply leapt off the hook, slaughtered him, and sliced his body clean in half. Brody set out to search for his men and found the last soldier hanging lifeless on the hook. At that moment, he realized he was completely alone, yet he refused to surrender. Moving cautiously through the dark corridors, Jason's armored arm suddenly smashed through the wall, yanking him violently and slamming him against the structure to impale him. Despite his wounds, Brody defiantly declared, "That's not enough," but Jason struck again, ensuring his death. In Lab 1, the group realized they no longer had any protection. Lowe contacted the pilot, ordering him to engage hyperspace to reach Solaris Station quickly. The ship began its course, but Jason appeared behind the pilot and killed him as well. As a result, the ship lost control and crashed directly into Solaris, destroying several buildings and causing multiple explosions that tore through the vessel's systems and entire structure. Yet, despite the collision, the ship continued flying, leaving Solaris Station behind. Lowe considered trying to pilot the ship again, but from the window they saw Solaris Station engulfed in explosions. Fear spread among the students, yet Lowe reassured them, telling them to wait for another vessel since he had already activated the distress signal. At that moment, someone began knocking on the door, but the terrified screams inside made the pounding stop. As they tried to make sense of it, Jason smashed through the glass wall connecting to the second lab. The group panicked, fleeing to another room to hide, while Lowe stayed behind, attempting to negotiate with Jason, offering him fame and money. But Jason found his original machete and killed Lowe instantly. Meanwhile, the group discussed their options and remembered the escape pod. They decided to split up to carry out the plan. Rowan, Janessa, and Kinza went to the ship to prepare the pod, while Wayland and Kretsch began the pre-launch sequence from the bridge, which first required them to remove the pilot's body and clear the control panel. Cam 14 and Sunan began collecting vital parts for modifications. Minutes later, Rowan spotted another body that seemed to still be alive. She told Janessa and Kinza to continue while she went to investigate. Moving cautiously, Rowan circled around a metal bar fixed to the wall until she reached the body, only to discover that it was Brody, badly wounded. She urged him to hold on and promised she would get him back to the ship. Rowan called for help to move Brody's body, while Anne contacted Kretsch to confirm that the ship was ready, also requesting reinforcements for Rowan. Anne then joined her, but when they searched for Brody's body, it was gone. At that same moment, Kretsch was horrified to see the pilot's severed head in Jason's grasp. He managed to warn the others over the comms before Jason shoved him onto the electrical panel, electrocuting him to death. When Kinsa heard the news, terror overwhelmed her and she locked the ship's hatch. Rowan and Anne begged her to reopen it, but instead, Kinsa launched the ship prematurely. It crashed into the main vessel, killing her instantly and causing further damage to the hull. The remaining three tried to figure out their next move, but suddenly, Jason appeared and cornered them. Just before he could strike, Sonarin arrived just in time to show the upgrades made to the android KM-14, which was now armed and ready for combat. Jason immediately hurled his machete at her, striking her and forcing her down to her knees from the pain. He moved in to finish her, but KM-14 feigned weakness. She suddenly opened fire, knocking him backward, then leapt high and continued trading shots and kicks with him. After minutes of fighting, KM-14 closed in, preparing to deliver a lethal blow to his head, but Jason struck her and hurled her aside, nearly finishing her. At that moment, Brody appeared from behind and distracted Jason long enough for KM-14 to regain her sensors. Wielding a different weapon, she attacked and severed Jason's arm as she breached the wall, which allowed her to kick him into a medical pod. The impact caused a small explosion. Before leaving anything to chance, KM-14 struck Jason in the head again to ensure he was dead, and as a final touch, she hurled his machete back into his body, believing then that it was truly over. The group gathered and carried Brody into another room to treat him. He had recovered to nearly 80% when suddenly the ship began to shake violently. Anne realized that the breach had been severely damaged. At that moment, they received a transmission from another vessel that had picked up their distress signal, informing them it would arrive in 45 minutes, yet their own ship was set to explode in less than 30. A heated argument broke out about what to do next. While monitoring the ship's schematics, Rowan noticed that one section remained intact and could be detached from the rest. As the group moved to carry out this plan, the machine in Lab 1 automatically activated, beginning to repair Jason and forging for him a powerful metallic body. Meanwhile, the group planted explosives along the corridors to separate the damaged zone from the intact section. They managed to complete the task within seconds, but as soon as they finished, they found their path blocked by Jason himself. KM-14 opened fire on Jason, but every bullet bounced off his metallic body. She then tried to attack him physically, but Jason swiftly struck and decapitated her. Sun rushed to grab her head, while Rowan activated the shield. Jason lunged at her and began to choke her, but Anne joined the fight, distracting him long enough for the others to escape into the safe zone. Once everyone was secure, Wayland triggered the explosives. The ship successfully split into two sections, but Wayland lost his life in the process, while the shockwave hurled Jason into space. Moments later, the rescue ship approached, but Jason reappeared, tearing through the outer wall. The breach began sucking everything into space. Everyone clung desperately to whatever they could, but unfortunately, Janessa held onto a nearby net that gave way. Rowan tried to reach her hand, but before she could, Janessa was pulled out and killed. Afterward, Rowan, Brody, Sonarin, and the severed head of KM-14 managed to reach another room and sealed the door tight. Through the window, they saw Jason tearing through the wall again, trying to enter the ship. At last, they reached the docking point, just as the rescue vessel established contact with the main ship. However, the boarding corridor failed to activate. Sonarin was unable to bypass the system, so Brody decided to go outside and manually override the cables. He put on a spacesuit and exited through the maintenance hatch. While Brody was working on the control panel, Sonarin and Rowan heard Jason smashing doors and drawing closer. To buy time, Sonarin connected KM-14's head to the computer and activated a video simulation around Jason, using Earth's database to recreate his hometown. At first, Jason was briefly confused and believed he had found a new playground. Two figures appeared, offering him drinks, drugs, and tempting pleasures. But Jason despised it all. When the two figures lay in sleeping bags, Jason grabbed one and used their body to brutally strike the other. At that very moment, Brody finally managed to restart the system, opening the boarding corridor. Yet his tampering with the cables triggered an explosion in the room, abruptly ending the simulation. As Jason drew closer, Rowan and Sonarin ran toward the rescue ship, but Sonarin realized they had forgotten KM-14's head. Rowan turned back, rushing to the bridge to retrieve it, all while seeing Jason closing in. The killer tried to follow her, but Brody appeared and sealed the passage. The rescue ship could no longer wait and took off, as Brody confronted Jason directly.
At that moment, part of the ship exploded and the shockwave hurled Jason toward the rescue vessel. Luckily, Brody was also propelled in the same direction and shoved Jason away. Then, Brody used Jason's body as a shield, and the two of them plunged together into Earth 2's atmosphere, where they were completely incinerated. Meanwhile, Rowan, Sonoran, and KM-14's head finally felt relieved and happy that everything was over. But on the surface of Earth 2, a boy and a girl saw what they thought was a shooting star crashing into a lake. They decided to investigate. In truth, it was none other than Jason's head, which might still be alive to this day. And so today's story comes to an end.
If you liked the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel.